Okay, moving on to written communication. Just a selection of the sorts of communication, written communication that we're likely to encounter in our day-to-day lives. Business correspondence in all its forms, different documents relating to kicking a project off, and then moving on to project reports themselves, progress reports, final reports, and so forth, like wiki and web pages. Now, whilst many engineering organizations generally have some policies and guidelines, conventions, and so forth, and indeed templates for many of the written communications or many of the written documents that you're likely to prepare, they're not likely to have guidelines that cover grammar and style, because they assume that as engineers and staff more generally, you've previously acquired the relevant knowledge and skills. So it's important that you acquire these skills externally, university, and so forth. So lots and lots of books on the topic of the university, as well as many public libraries, and most universities, including this one, have online resources and tutors that are available to students. So again, if you need any support in these areas, there's lots and lots of materials that are available. You may also look to some of the external training organisations, such as the Australian Institute of Management, to provide you some guidance in this area as well. Okay, just some examples of the various business correspondence we're likely to come across. I'm not going to dwell on it. Emails, memos, letters. Having said that, I haven't seen too many memos in recent past, so it seems to have gone by the wayside for very good reasons. There are many other ways we can communicate beyond a physical piece of paper stuck on a notice board and the likes. Business letters, it's important that we get a professional approach to that. So I will spend a bit more time on how we might go about formatting the business letter on the coming slide. Okay, here's a pretty basic format for preparation of a business letter, drawn from your textbook, so you can drill down on this a little bit further. Many folks may feel that this is, again, something that's self-evident or doesn't need to be taught or reminded. But I see in my day-to-day professional life the number of pieces of correspondence come to me, formal and informal, but particularly formal, that really hasn't been prepared, hasn't been written all that well. So again, nice reminder to ensure that we can tick off the boxes along the left-hand side there, presenting our letter, this letter on a formal letterhead, dating the document itself. I know it's just a basic thing, but it bewilders me why people wouldn't actually date their documents and so forth. Ensuring the recipient details are correct. So again, make sure that we get the spell and name correctly, get their title right, the business name right, and so forth. Spelling is just extraordinarily important to me, and how often I can spot a typo. I can spot a typo a mile off, and it puts me off. So, and particularly around the details of the recipient, make sure you get that right. A little tips that I was taught throughout my career is present their details exactly as it is on their business card, if you do in fact hold their business card. Now, don't try to guess the spelling of the name. There'll be some details on LinkedIn or a website or somewhere that you can actually generally find that information. So make sure that you don't put the recipient off on the second line because you've actually got their name or title or address details wrong. And salutation, how are you going to present it? Dear sir, dear ma'am, dear whatever. Or is it less formal than that? So make some decisions around that. Subject matter, what is it you're going to talk about? Just to get people oriented, yourself as well as the recipient. The body of the document, how are you going to close it off? Are you asking them to take some action? Is there some requirement for follow-up and so forth? Be specific about that. Signature, is there some formal reference, or are there some attachments or enclosures? And are we copying it to others within our organization or others? So again, just get some format that works for you, that ensures that any material that you send out to customers, suppliers, other stakeholders is commensurate with what the organization would require from a reputation standpoint, from a branding standpoint, and so forth. And organizations, a lot of them do have some guidelines and policies around how you might write a business letter, right down to even the fonts and the font sizes that you will use. What we would call in marketing terminology some of the secondary brand associations, because they're important. So try to avoid coming up with fancy fonts and font sizes and so forth, because you like them, particularly if they don't gel or don't sit well with the overall branding requirements of your organization. Okay, just a list of some of the other documents and written pieces of material that we may come across as engineers or engineer associates, largely relating to projects. We may receive a formal client brief, request for a proposal, something along those lines. We may be responding to a tender request and the likes. Within that overall brief, there may be a specific design brief, as you see there. Tender documents, we're presenting responses to requests for proposals and so forth, often very, very thorough, very, very detailed, very, very professional documents. Contracts, either contracts that are presented to us as something to review and approve, or something we prepare where we're using maybe we're using subcontracts first for work and we contract them to do so, or even the contracts that we may prepare for our own customers, our own clients, for the work that we undertake on their behalf. And then finally, another example would be, say, some of the engineering instructions that we generate and provide to progress projects, and ultimately they'll all form part of the overall project file. So again, just some examples of further written documents around project initiation. We can see the list of written documents that we deal with and we come across on a daily basis is quite significant. And these are just some examples of some of the project-related reports that we may be involved with. Progress reports, final reports, technical reports, perhaps some technical manuals or specification documents. From time to time, we might be required to write essays or even articles for publications, some peer-reviewed and some not. And each of those has a particular style and requirement about them. And I'd ask that you make sure that you review the content of the text to get some details on that. But again, I present this list as a means to show us all that written communication is a significant part of what we do as engineers. So developing our skills in this area, independently of what our organization might require, plus linking that with the various policies, guidelines, practices and protocols that are already documented within your own organization. So you should seek those out to ensure that what you're doing consistent with what the organization's expectations. With the digital revolution comes the opportunity to have written communication in areas such as Wikis and so forth. So, repositories of information that we can all contribute to and draw from within our organization and so forth. And any particular opportunity to present and document material on our websites and so forth that are appropriate. Okay, this subtopic really just focused on the various forms of written communication we're likely to come across. Now, we do spend a lot of our time at work writing or responding to written documents. Now, this includes correspondence, project initiation documents, financial documents, human resource documents, workplace health and safety documents, and indeed project reports. Now, each of these have a purpose, and most have a defined format. Now, often they're set by our own organization, often we have a bit of latitude. But we need to consider, in addition to that, in some of the legal and regulatory contexts of all of these documents, and not just contracts. Contracts are important, obviously, from a legal perspective, but also need to consider any other document that we provide that ends up in or has potential to end up in the outside world, and what the ramifications are if we haven't presented that in a format consistent with what the organization would ask. So we should always use an appropriate format and structure and style for this written communication so the information is accessible to or by our audience and ultimately achieves its purpose. Okay, next week. Sorry, not next week. Next subtopic. I'll repeat that, not next week, but next subtopic is that of oral and visual communication and different ways that we can generate those in an effective manner in our day-to-day activities.